before you do the business. First thing first. As a wholesaler, before you do any deals, before you get your first real estate deal, you need to have what we call your wholesaling power team. It consists of an investor-friendly title company, a title company that knows all about assignment contracts, knows all about double closings, know all about lease with option to buy, know all about all these different other strategies. They are investor-friendly and they're used to working with investors. You must have that in place before deal one. Number two, a real estate agent. Now, the purpose of that real estate agent is someone that can give you comps, after repair value, letting you know what properties are selling for, and can also provide leads. My friend Christian Anderson, Exit Realty, fantastic opportunity, on time, get you leads and so on. So definitely, you're looking for investor-friendly real estate company, Exit Realty, Christian Anderson. But that agent is that person that is part of that team that is one of the most important parts of that team. Because if you're going to do volume in this business, you got to take action fast. And what I mean by that, that real estate agent should be able to give you comps in at least 2 hours or less. If the agent can't give you comps in 2 hours or less, you're fired. Why? Because that agent is going to cost you money. The minute a seller contacts you to sell their property, to buy properties and so on, that seller is going to be reaching out to other investors. And the investor that can put an offer in that seller's hand the quickest will get the deal. So speed is your friend in this business, along with accuracy. So you have to be able to put that offer in that seller's hand. From the time you get the phone call from the seller to the time you make the offer should be 2 hours or less. Team member number 2. Yes.
Charles, can you explain how you establish a quid pro quo, whether you give an agent in that relationship?
Great question. What is the relationship, or how do you establish the quid pro quo in order to get that agent to want to work with you? You let that agent know that the leads that you don't do anything with, you will send to them so they can get listings. You can even offer to pay that agent a finder's fee for comps on deals or properties that you close on that they pull comps on. So there's a couple of ways in which you can incentivize that agent to make them stick with you.
Real estate agents the only means to get comp?
Great question. Is real estate agents the only means to get comp? The answer is no. The number one way is MLS, real estate agents. Number 2 is a program called Privy, P-R-I-V-Y. Privy pulls the same data from the MLS. Now, the multiple listing service is what real estate agents use in order to pull comps. Privy pulls that data from the MLS. Now, Privy isn't cheap. When you're working with an agent, you can get an agent to do this for free, provided you're going to provide them leads, you're going to provide them opportunities to make money and so on. You're not going to waste their time. But if you're going to sign up for a program like Privy, it's going to cost you $49 a month. And it has just as good as leads inside of Privy that you can get from the MLS. Great thing. He reminded me that Privy only operates in certain markets. It does operate in Maryland, D.C., and Virginia, so you're covered. But there are only certain markets that it operates in. Great point. Power team member number 3, and the final power team member is this. The gurus will have you believe that every time you put a property or you go to a property, you need to take a contractor with you. Who in the hell is going to go with you to a property that you don't plan on buying, that you're going to plan on wholesaling 50, 60 properties in a month? Who's going to do that? What contractor do you know that's going to do that? I don't know any of them. The fact of the matter, how do you handle your repair estimate, guesstimating or trying to figure out what the repairs are, is you create what's called a repair estimate cheat sheet. And you can do this by hiring a contractor to walk through a couple of their projects or a couple of projects they are aware of and have them break down repair costs, but you're paying that contractor $50, $75 to create a cheat sheet for you. That's how you do this part of the business, because you have to be able to estimate repairs. No contractor, despite what book you read it from, will walk through 50 properties just to give you estimates. You have to get efficient at estimating repairs, and the way you do that is by creating or having a contractor work with you to create a cheat sheet. What's the average cost for fixing up a kitchen? What's the average cost for bathroom? What's the average cost for hanging sheetrock? What's the average cost for installing central air? And so on and so on and so on. And that's what you use when you're trying to determine what's the repairs that's needed in the property. You use that cheat sheet. As a matter of fact, I'm going to give each and every one of you guys who stay here at the end of the day my DC, PG County, Baltimore City, and Baltimore County repair cheat sheets. Can you dig it? All you got to do is just stay to the end of the day. What time? Whenever I get finished talking. No, it's going to be around 1:30. I'm not going to keep you guys here all day. It'll be around 1:30. Now, that's your power team. That must be in place before you do deal one. Next, you got to have a business identity. Once you have your power team, now you want to start working on that business identity. What do I mean by business identity? I'm talking about business cards. Come on. Raise your hand. How many of you guys have business cards? Raise your hand. You have business cards. Keep them up, keep them up, keep them up. Now, take them down. Who don't have business cards? Raise your hand. You know Vistaprint selling for $10, right? There is no excuse. Just $10. We're talking about the identity. Good is good enough. Doesn't have to be perfect. Good is good enough. And with those business cards, you want to take those business cards and give them to at least 50 to 100 people a week. That means networking. Everybody you meet, let them know who you are, what you're doing, and how you can help them. Come up with what's called an elevator pitch. My elevator pitch is, I have a rehab development company. We help problem sellers sell their property fast in 7 days or less. That's my elevator pitch. Rehab development company. We help sellers sell their properties in 7 days or less. You don't need to go into, and I have a master's degree in this, and I got a distressed realtor agent degree in this and it. All they want to know is, what is it that you can do for them? How quickly can you do it? And why they should work with you. Give that business card out 50 to 100 times a week. Email account. I don't think I had to tell you guys that. Get an email account. Email account should match your business name. If you can find a free one in Gmail, do it. As long as it matches your business name. Truth be told, you can get an email account, unlimited website hosting with a company like Bluehost, GoDaddy, HostMonster, $10, $5, $20 a month, depending on what company you go with. Email account, you need this for your business identity. It should match your company name. Join at least 10 meetup groups in your area. When I say meetup groups, I'm also referring to RIAs and so on. Now, when you join the RIAs and stuff, make sure you keep your credit card at home. But join at least 10 RIAs or meetup groups in your area. Reason why? These are your like-minded individuals. These are your resources. These are where you're going to wholesale properties. These is where you're going to get deals from. These is where you're going to get other issues and information from. These groups. Go to at least 2 to 5 a month. I tell all my students, I don't want you to just stay here at the meetup. There's other information out there for you. Yeah, I got a lot of information. I've been in the business for 30 years. But there's still individuals out there that can share, and there's opportunities out there that you can get that I may not be providing you. Not to mention, no one group or one person is going to buy every deal. So you want to go to these meetup groups and find opportunities. Let people know what you're doing. Buyers, renters, wholesalers, you name it. Title companies, lenders. You got to build your network. And this is a great place to do it. Facebook groups on real estate investing. Join the top 10 Facebook groups on real estate investing for the same reason you're joining the meetup groups. To put yourself out there, to find opportunities, and to also make connections. Craigslist account. Now, I just use Craigslist to say any type of directory site. Zillow, Craigslist, Twilio, and so on. You want to have these different connections. You want to have these different accounts because you're going to be marketing your opportunities. You're going to be finding opportunities. And I'm going to show you today how you can find opportunities in all these different directories. So join and sign up for these different directory sites like Craigslist, Twilio, and so on. How to determine what you should offer the seller. So you've got your team in place. So you got your identity. Well, you got to be able to analyze the deal to determine how much you should offer the seller for the wholesale property. If you don't know how to do that before the deal comes in, how are you going to do a deal? These are all things you must know before you do your first wholesale deal. Now, the most prudent and the most tried method at doing this is the maximum allowable offer. Don't let anybody tell you as a wholesaler there's something better out there, because there isn't. The maximum allowable offer is determined by the people who are lending the money to the rehabbers. They use maximum allowable offers of 65% to 70%. When you're talking about wholesaling for rehab projects. That's why you use 65%, 70%. Now, when we do stuff in Columbus, Ohio, we'll use 60%. But your actual lenders is the one that's pretty much setting the actual parameter of what the maximum allowable offer parameter should be. And in Maryland, D.C., Virginia, it's 65 to 70% in most instances. Because that's what lenders are lending at. 65 cents on the dollar, 70 cents on the dollar. Now, what does that look like? The maximum allowable offer is the after repair value. Now, after repair value is nothing more than a fancy word for comps. How many of you guys know what comps are? Raise your hand. And how many of you guys don't know what comps are? Raise your hand. One. I'm going to tell everybody anyway because you need to know. Comps is nothing more than comparing what you would call apples to apples and what that apple sold for. For example, if the house you're looking at is a townhouse, your comp need to be a townhouse. If the house you're looking at is 1,200 square foot, your comp need to be close to 1,200 square foot. If the house you're looking at is in this neighborhood, your comp should be within 0.5 miles of the subject property. Apples to apples. That's what we call after repair value. Also, your comp is sold property, not properties that's under contract, not properties that's active. I actually had someone in my company before I fired them who actually sent me comps of townhouses, ranchers, and detached houses and called them a comp. Now, the reason why I hired a person, because of their history that I knew about this person. But once I saw what was under the hood, no. So, even some experienced investors don't know what comps are. It's nothing more than comparing apples to apples. What the property you're looking at will sell for once it's rehabbed. Yes?
If you can't find a property within 25 miles or
Great question.
it's across that zip code line where the value change.
We start our comps off at a half a mile, then we go to 3/4 of a mile, then we go to 1 mile. So you can go further out if it's not there. Now, you get in trouble when you go into different subdivisions because it's just a harder situation where you're going to different subdivisions. The best part about this process is it's not going to be something that's going to be often. So that's the exception to the rule, what you just mentioned. More likely than not, there are going to be comps in the neighborhood. Now, the question is the comps worth you buying? I'll give you an example. You got some areas on Biddle Street that I don't care what the comps are. I'm not even going to cross the street in those areas. Now, some investors don't mind those areas because they like the high return on the rental income. But you don't look at those properties for comps as rehab to sell. You're looking at those properties for comps for rental income. What kind of numbers you're going to get positive cash flow. So you're absolutely correct, but that's really the exception to the rule. More likely than not, you're going to find comps. And where there's mostly not comps at is usually a problem area or a high rural area where there's farmland 220 miles separating the next house and so on. Now, I just exaggerated, ain't not 20 miles. But you know what I mean. When it's a rural area, it's going to be harder to find comps in that 1 mile jurisdiction. But you want to start off with a half a mile. Now, here's something else you want to start off with, what a lot of people don't do. With your comps, you start off with 90 days. Then you go 6 months. Then you go 12 months. So I don't look for 12 months comps. I want the most recent comps in the last 90 days. If I can't find them in the last 90 days, I'll go 60 days. So that's how you want to move that progression when you go further out for your comps when it comes to time span. Now also realize this, that just because a property has 3 bedrooms and 2 baths and one has three bedrooms and 1 bath, that don't mean it's not a good comp. Because as long as the square footage is close enough, for example, a 1,200 square foot property and a 1,200 square foot property, one is 3.1, one is 3.2. The square foot told me that I can add another bathroom because it has the same square footage as the one that's 3.2. So I can add another bathroom to make the comp work. So last but not least about after repair value. The easiest way to determine what you should do to your property is to look at what your comps did to their properties. Properties that sold in those areas. What was the rehab like? That's why it's important as you as an investor, you go to open houses in the neighborhoods that you're farming, in the neighborhoods that you're working with. Because you want to look at the rehabs that was done in those neighborhoods, and when you see an opportunity in those neighborhoods, all you got to do is say, if my property matches that look, I should get that value. It's that simple. This isn't rocket science. Just do what your competition did at the very least, and you're going to get the same value. So, the first part you're looking at in this formula is what we call after repair value times 65%. So, for example, the after repair value or the property that was rehabbed sold for $100,000. Multiply that times 65%, I'm at $65,000. Next, minus the repair costs. So let's say we're at 65 right now, and my repair cost is $20,000. So I want to minus $20,000 from that $65,000. I'm at $45,000. I got one more number to factor in. The profit I want to make as a wholesaler. The profit I want to make as a wholesaler is $10,000. So I'm at 45 minus 10. I'm at 35. That's the maximum amount I want to pay or give the seller for their property. That's her offer. Now remember what I said, the maximum amount. I'm going to drop off another 10 to 15%. Why? Because most sellers is going to try to talk you up. So I'll take another 15% off of the maximum allowable offer and start off at that price as my offer. This really isn't rocket science. That's how you determine what you want to give the seller for their property. The 65% times the after repair value, meaning 65% times the value of the property that is rehabbed. So if the rehab properties are selling for 100 times 60, when I say 100, I mean 100,000, times 65% equals 65,000. So just think of 65% times the value of what properties are selling for. And then you want to minus your repairs, and then you want to minus your profit you want to make as a wholesaler. Yes. I know you always have situations. Go ahead. Mm-hmm. Right. Mm-hmm. Yeah. That's a very common situation. The situation he's talking about is surprise costs that will only be found when you go and pull the title work. Now, the way you handle that is your paperwork. Your paperwork states that I will continue with this transaction at this price as long as there's no additional costs bared by the buyer. Any additional costs must come out of the proceeds of the seller. That solves that problem. There's no way you're going to know it unless you pull title. So there's no way you're going to get that information known. So I don't want you to say, well, Charles, how can I figure that out myself without having to pull title? Now, you can do what's called an abstract, and you can do what's called an actual lien certificate from the city for liens. You can do that, and that will cost you $55. And it will give you some of the liens like taxes, water bills, and so on. And that will cost you $55. You don't have to worry about paying a title company for that. But there are also liens that won't come up unless you do a deep title search. But you can go right down to the Able Woman building and pull a city lien search for $55 and find those tax liens out for just that price. It will take you 3 to 5 days to get the lien search back. The Able Wolfman building right downtown. Yes, it's called the municipal building. Yes. Mm-hmm. Right. Mm-hmm. Okay.
What I end up running into is that I have these sellers who, when they see what I try to eliminate them being in the same clothes to find out.
Well, you're talking about as far as controlling the closing room. Well, I tell you how we do it. Now, I'm going to give you a breakdown of what he's talking about. You got the deal under contract, and now the actual seller is seeing your profit when you go to the title company. We just did a closing on Wednesday. It was $11,000 wholesale fee on that closing we did on the property on Chargrove. So we did a closing on Wednesday. Same situation. My title company is an investor-friendly title company. My title company separated the individuals from each room. So he did the paperwork on the sell side in one room and the paperwork on the buy side in the other room. Now, I'll tell you something else too, guys. I'll be honest with you. When you're a seller and you see a $50-something thousand check in front of you, how much reading are you going to do? You're not going to do a lot of reading. You're not. As a matter of fact, you done already spent all the money already. So you're not going to do a lot of reading. Exactly. Exactly. Now, here's what do come up, though. You'll have your biggest issue with the buyer. The buyer saying, Mr. Wholesaler, you're making, I had a wholesale fee, and I didn't care. We paid a wholesaler $60,000 as a wholesale fee. And it's a property in PG County. I didn't care, because I don't count the money that my wholesaler is making. I know what my money I'm going to make. But you have rehabbers that will look at that wholesaler and say $60,000? No. And they will try to make you lower your price, lower your fee, and threaten not to go to closing. In fact, some of them will even make sure they get you right 2 days before closing and tell you, this fee, that number ain't going to work for me. Knowing that you have no other choice but to adjust it. I should have added that as one of the myths and facts in this business. It doesn't happen often, but one of the ways you can handle that is do what's called a double close. A double close is where you borrow what's called transactional funding or gap funding. Transactional funding is somebody that's going to lend you money to the time you go to closing, to the time you sell the property. And normally it's in the same day. Now, if I'm going to make $60,000, should I have an issue with paying a gap funder or a transactional funder $4,000? Just to make sure I don't have to worry about my buyer trying to talk me down? That's why you want to do gap funding or transitional funding when you have large wholesale fees, large profits. What do I consider a large profit? Probably $15,000 or more. Bojan.
You can blend the price, can't you?
You can, say that again?
Blend the price in the original contract.
You can blank the price in your original contract. Yes, you can, but rehabbers want to make sure you have it under contract, and when you go to the closing, that HUD-1 is going to show the assignment fee. So you usually get the HUD-1 a couple days prior. So it's going to show what the assignment fee is. That's why I say when you're dealing with a large profit, the double close or gap funding would be the best way to go. Yes.
What are the rates of gap funding?
It depends. Gap funding is like hard money. And there's a reason why they call it hard money. Because they can charge whatever they want, 3, 5, 7, 8%. Normally it's between 3 and 5 for the short term, but it's got to be short term.
So what are the risks for gap funder? What risks is he taking, really?
The risk is really none, because the funds aren't released unless the transaction happens. So there's very little risk that the gap funder is meeting. So it's a great strategy if you want to lend money on deals, because the instructions state that the actual funds isn't released until all party funds is at the closing. So there's really very little risk. That's why those industries are pretty big.
So next question is about, what about home buyers? If you had somebody walk out of the wholesale deal, I mean, we're doing one, it's a home buyer that's buying a multi-unit from us.
Mm-hmm.
It's a quite large wholesale fee.
Okay.
Like 6 figures.
Okay. Well, ask me what I would do. If I would do gap funding or transitional funding. That's what I would do. Now, the exception to that is if you know the seller. If you have a great relationship with the seller. No. No. Then you want to do gap funding. You want to do some type of transitional funding, buy it on the front end. You got a 6-figure fee. Your funding, your actual closing costs, 3 to 5%. Come on. Question is, do you have people that specialize in gap funding? One easy way is just to do a Google search, local gap funding. Another easy way is reach out to your title companies. Title companies have providers that do gap funding as well. You got a mentor, reach out to your mentors, so on and so on and so on. Reach out, that's the reason for the meetup groups. When I told you to sign up for those meetup groups, do anybody know any good gap funding companies to work with? These are the questions that you would put in those meetup groups. These are the questions that you put in those Facebook groups. That's why your resources is so important for you. So, that's what is your maximum allowable offer that you will pay. So you didn't figure out now how much you should offer, how much you should give that seller. Now comes the good part. Yes?
That apply also to the MLS? Does that also apply to the MLS?
Doesn't matter where the property is, because the number is based off of after repair value. So it doesn't matter if it's only MLS or a homeowner or whatever. What matters is, what is the after repair value? True thing about this business, garbage in gives you garbage out. If you got bad after repair value, if your number is wrong, your whole deal will be wrong. If your repair estimate is wrong, your whole deal will be wrong. If your number is right and your repair estimate is right and it says you will make a profit, you will make a profit. That's why accuracy is the key to this business. Knowing your numbers and making sure you're right on your number. You don't have to be absolute on your repair costs. 10 to 15% is a good margin for failure. But you want to be close enough. But as long as you're right on those two factors there, you can't go wrong.
So I know the gold closings cost a lot more, and the buyer ends up usually paying for that, right? So I guess I'm just
No, there is no usual. When you said the buyer usually pay for it, not necessary. It depends on what was in that initial contract. If the initial contract says buyer pays all closing costs, then yes. But if you're doing a double close, the buyer is not paying closing costs on that first close because you're buying the property. You're the buyer. That's a double close. You buy it on the first, and then you sell it to your rehabber on the second. So you're the buyer. And whatever you said in that first contract, that's how the closing cost is covered. Whether it's you paying all the closing costs, or I'm splitting the closing costs, the seller paying their side and the buyer paying his side. When I do wholesale deals, I tell the buyers, the seller, that I will pay all closing costs. On the deal that we closed on Wednesday, I told the seller, we'll pay all closing costs. Because I factor that into my offer. I wanted to make sure I got this deal. Yes? What's my thoughts on Zillow? Crap. If you're talking about Zestimate, if you're talking about estimate of after repair value, crap. It's not accurate. They got lawsuit after lawsuits about their Zestimate, people talking about this and that about the company. There's only one main thing that you should use for comps is MLS. Absence of MLS, you should use something like a Privy that pull comps from the MLS.